Alright, so you've just jumped into Crystal of Atlan, and you're staring at all these different classes like, which one should I even pick? It's not an easy choice because every class brings something different to the table. Some hit like a truck with insane burst damage. Others are more about keeping your team alive with support skills. And then there are those utility-heavy picks that can completely change how a fight plays out. But here's the truth. No matter how balanced a game tries to be, some classes are just flat-out stronger than others. Now, in Crystal of Atlan, we've got 11 classes to choose from, but keep in mind that 5 of those are just your starting point. You'll eventually level out of them and step into more advanced roles, and that's where things get interesting. Picking the right class depends on what you enjoy. Do you want raw power, surgical precision, or maybe a high-skill challenge? Plus, whether you're diving into PvP or grinding PvE can totally shift which class ends up feeling the best. Today, we're breaking it all down so you can figure out exactly where you belong in this world. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking classes in Crystal of Atlan. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The classes in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Fighter, Magister, Musketeer, Swordsman, and Puppeteer. You know what is worse than being stuck in traffic? Being stuck with a class that looks great on paper but hits the ceiling way too early. That is exactly what happens with our B-tier buddies in Crystal of Atlan. They are good, they are fun, and they will carry you for a while. But eventually, you realize they are like that one friend who always says, "I am coming to the gym next week," and never shows up. Let's start with the Fighter. At the beginning, this class feels like a rock star at a small-town concert. It comes in, smashes bosses, and clears mobs like it has something to prove. Sure, it is not built to survive the craziest situations, but its raw damage output more than makes up for it. For new players, this is a solid pick, easy to understand and satisfying to play. Now, the Magister. Oh boy, this one has so much potential, but the game is not really built for it. Crystal of Atlan is all about speed and mobility, and the Magister is out here like an old wizard asking you to stand still for a lecture. Many of its abilities require you to root yourself in place, which makes solo play a nightmare. You feel powerful when you land the big spells, but half the time you are also wondering, why does every monster move faster than me? Moving on to the Musketeer. At first glance, having a gun and fighting from a distance sounds like a dream. And yes, range is a massive advantage, especially when you have teammates to take the heat for you. The problem comes when the game throws huge waves of enemies your way. Suddenly, the Musketeer is less sniper elite and more guy with a BB gun trying to stop a stampede. Still, it evolves into advanced classes that can deal serious damage later, so there is definitely some light at the end of the tunnel. Then we have the Swordsman. If you are completely new to Crystal of Atlan, this class feels like a warm hug. It is simple, it is direct, and it works. No complicated mechanics, no confusing abilities, just grab your sword and swing away. Bosses? No problem. Crowds of enemies? Also no problem. If classes were video game tutorials, the Swordsman would be the one teaching you with giant flashing arrows saying, "Press here to win." Now, the Puppeteer. This class is like having a quirky roommate who actually helps with chores. On its own, the Puppeteer is pretty solid. But then you add the Marionette, and suddenly you are micromanaging a buddy on the battlefield. It can feel a little extra challenging at first, but it is also kind of rewarding once you get the hang of it. And let's be honest, when a living doll is smashing enemies for you, it is hard not to feel cool. So what do all these classes have in common? They are useful early on, they have their moments to shine, and they definitely help you learn the ropes of the game. But here is the catch. Every single one of them maxes out their skills at level 10. That means by the time you hit level 15, they are already looking at retirement plans. It is almost like the game hands you these classes as training wheels. You are cruising along, everything feels fine, and then bam, you realize the wheels are not coming off. They are just breaking down. That is when you know it is time to start eyeing those advanced classes that keep scaling. Still, I cannot completely hate on these B-tier picks. They are like that starter car you had in college. It did not have Bluetooth, the paint was peeling, and sometimes you had to hit the radio to make it work, but it got you where you needed to go. And honestly, sometimes that is enough. So, if you are new to Crystal of Atlan, do not stress too much if you start out with these. The Fighter, the Magister, the Musketeer, the Swordsman, and the Puppeteer will all give you a taste of the game's core mechanics without overwhelming you. They might not carry you all the way to the endgame, but they will absolutely help you figure out what playstyle you enjoy. And hey, once you do move on, you will look back at these B-tier classes with a mix of nostalgia and mild embarrassment. Kind of like your old social media posts. You do not want to show them to anyone, but you cannot deny they were part of your journey. The classes in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Cloud Strider, Magician, Blade Maiden, Bounty Hunter, Elementalist, and Warlock. If the B-tier classes are like your first car, the A-tier classes are like finally upgrading to something with Bluetooth and working air conditioning. These are the ones that make you feel powerful, stylish, and just a little smug, until you realize they are still not quite S-tier material. But hey, they get pretty close. Let's kick things off with the Cloud Strider. This class is like that friend who always says, "Trust me, it gets better later." And they are not wrong. The damage is solid once you unlock the higher levels, but until then, you are basically a very stylish jogger with a lot of potential. The stance rotation also adds a level of complication. You cannot just swing blindly, you have to actually pay attention. And let's be real, not all of us signed up for homework when we picked our class. Next up, the Magician. I have to say, this one looks like it came straight out of a fantasy anime, and the spells are just as flashy. The crowd control is fantastic, the utility is top-notch, but the catch? You are basically at the mercy of random number generation. Imagine pulling a deck of cards and hoping you get the one that does not ruin your entire setup. Sometimes you look like a genius, other times you look like you're trying to juggle blindfolded. Then there is the Blade Maiden, and wow, this class is fun. You are not just swinging a sword, you are basically running a dance routine with your puppet partner. Your attacks mirror each other, which means enemies can get trapped in between for massive damage. It is beautiful, it is deadly, and it is also exhausting, because if you misplace that puppet even slightly, you go from Master of Destruction to awkwardly flailing while your doll stares at a wall. Precision is everything here. Sliding over to the Bounty Hunter. This one is kind of the cool kid of a tier. Easy to learn, quick to play, and it comes with elemental damage and decent range. You do not have to sweat too much to look effective, which makes it one of the more approachable classes for new players. The only downside? It does not bring much utility to the table. You are basically there for damage and damage only. If that is all you want, great, but do not expect to carry the team with fancy tricks. Now, let's talk Elementalist. Big area of effect damage, long range, and the ability to clear large groups of enemies in player versus environment is no joke. This class makes you feel like you're throwing a rave party made of fire and ice. The downside is the slower casting times. While you are waving your hands dramatically to summon a storm, enemies might already be punching you in the face. So yeah, powerful, but you better plan ahead or invest in good timing. And then we have the Warlock. This is the ultimate late bloomer. At first, you might be wondering why you picked this brooding edgelord. But then, later on, when the damage numbers start exploding on screen, you realize you are basically role-playing as Doom with style. The trick is to keep your marks up on enemies, which adds another layer of management. It pays off big, but it takes a while before you really feel like the powerhouse you are supposed to be. So, what ties all of these A-tier classes together? They are strong, very strong. Each one brings something special to the table, whether it is utility, raw damage, or just sheer cool factor. But they all come with that one flaw that stops them from being truly busted. And 9 times out of 10, that flaw is complexity. You cannot just smash buttons and expect greatness with these picks. Well, technically you can button mash, but then your performance is going to look like a karaoke singer who forgot the lyrics. You will get the job done, sure, but it will not be pretty. To really make the most of these classes, you have to learn their mechanics, rotations, and timing. The Cloud Strider is a perfect example of this. If you just stand there pressing the same button, your damage is going to look embarrassing. But if you learn how to rotate through those stances properly, suddenly you are top of the charts. It is like going from I play guitar at campfires to I shred on stage with a full band. The same goes for Magician and Blade Maiden. On paper, they look flashy, but without proper understanding, you will end up missing opportunities or misplacing your puppet at the worst possible time. It is kind of like trying to cook a fancy dish without reading the recipe. Sure, you might still make something edible, but it is not going to impress anyone. Meanwhile, the Bounty Hunter and Elementalist are a little more forgiving. They are easier to pick up, and even if you are not perfect, you can still dish out decent damage. But their ceiling is lower compared to the S-tier monsters. Think of them like fast food, quick, reliable, and tasty, but not exactly fine dining. And finally, the Warlock. Honestly, this one deserves a medal for how dramatic the glow-up is from early game to late game. At first you feel weak, but once you stack your marks properly and unlock the full kit, the class feels like unleashing a horror movie on your enemies. It just requires patience, and let's be real, not everyone has that. So, all in all, the A-tier roster is stacked with fantastic classes. They are strong, they are flashy, and they can absolutely dominate if you put in the effort. They are like that friend who is incredibly talented, but also insists on finding themselves for 3 years before actually showing up to the big show. The classes in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Scytheguard, Starbreaker, Magiblade, Gunner, Berserker, and Maestrix. When we talk about S tier, we are no longer discussing good classes. We are talking about the elite few that make you feel like you just turned on cheat codes. These are the ones that dominate in both player versus environment and player versus player, and they do it while looking ridiculously stylish. First up, the Scytheguard. Honestly, this class feels illegal. Not only can she heal herself, but she is also the only true party-wide healer and buffer in the game. That means when things start looking bad, the Scytheguard is basically the team's insurance policy. Add in a damage reduction barrier and solid damage output, and suddenly you are a walking hospital that also carries a shotgun. In player versus player, it gets even sillier. She can keep herself alive forever while still swinging away. Then we have the Starbreaker. This class is pure adrenaline. Fast, ruthless, and impossible to pin down. She dashes in, smashes the target with devastating blows, and then zips out before anyone can blink. Boss fights? Easy. Big mobs? No problem. Player versus player? Forget it. Missing one swing against her basically means you're about to eat a full combo to the face. High stamina keeps her in the action, and the straightforward gameplay makes her one of the most beginner-friendly picks in the entire S tier. Next, the Magiblade. This one is all about speed and precision. It is not just quick damage, it is buffed quick damage. The hybrid nature of the Magiblade means you need to juggle cooldowns and maximize buffs, but the trade-off is insane burst potential. Once you get into the rhythm, you feel like a blender with legs. Sure, it takes a bit of practice, but the payoff is so worth it. Now let's talk Gunner. She is definitely not the fastest class in this lineup, but wow, the power is ridiculous. Area of effect attacks that melt entire groups, plus the flexibility to fight at melee, mid-range, and long-range, that is unheard of. The Gunner can adapt to literally any fight, which makes her equally terrifying in both dungeons and arenas. She is basically the Swiss Army knife of destruction. The Berserker though, oh man. This class is everything you want in a tank and more. It is not just about soaking hits, it is about smashing enemies into the ground while you do it. You will almost always top the damage charts in your party because your attacks are brutal and your debuffs make enemies slower and weaker. The lower your health gets, the harder you hit, which turns every fight into a dare. How close to death can I get without dying? The answer? Close enough to break the damage meter. And then there is Maestrix. If you like your gameplay flashy and technical, this one is for you. Stance changes, animation cancels, and perfectly timed rotations, she is a class that rewards skillful play like no other. At higher levels, Maestrix feels like performing a symphony of destruction, weaving combos together that just overwhelm enemies. She is tricky to master, but once you nail it, you become one of the most dangerous players on the battlefield. So what makes all these S-tier classes stand out compared to the rest? It is the combination of raw speed, insane damage output, and unique utility. You're not just smashing buttons, you are shaping fights, controlling the flow, and dominating in ways that other classes simply cannot match. The Scytheguard brings healing and support that no one else can replicate. The Starbreaker brings unstoppable agility and punishing burst. The Magiblade and Maestrix deliver precision gameplay that rewards skillful players with insane payoffs. The Gunner gives you flexibility that is basically cheating, and the Berserker just straight up bulldozes through everything. Another big reason these classes shine is that they are not overcomplicated. Yes, a few of them, like Maestrix, have a steeper learning curve, but for the most part you can pick these up and immediately start wrecking shop. And once you learn the proper rotations, forget it, you are basically writing your own victory screen. In both player versus environment and player versus player, these classes adapt to whatever is thrown at them. Need crowd control? They have it. Need buffs and healing? Covered. Need someone to obliterate the boss in record time? Done. They cover all the bases while still maintaining their own unique flair. And that is really the magic of S tier. It is not just about power, it is about versatility. Every one of these classes has that special something that makes them stand out, whether it is team utility, unmatched survivability, or damage that feels downright unfair. At the end of the day, picking an S tier class feels like unlocking the main character of the story. You are not just along for the ride, you are leading the charge, setting the pace, and probably making the enemies wonder why they even showed up. So if you want the ultimate Crystal of Atlan experience, whether you like healing, smashing, slicing, or gunning down everything in sight, this is where the real fun begins. S tier is not just a rank, it is a lifestyle. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.